Okay, so today we are going to get introduced to the medicinal plants that are commonly used in Ayurveda. So many of these plants will be familiar to you. And as I said in my previous webinar, calculating a list of plants that are used in Ayurveda, and then you can check and tell these plants are available in your own place. And even the plants that we are going to discuss today, all of them may not be familiar to you. So you can let me know which of the plants you are familiar with and which of the ones may not be available. You might even need to check up locally to find out which are the plants that are available. So we will start our presentation now. So how many of you can recognize this plant? Does anybody know what this plant is? No. So this is one of the most important medicinal plants in Ayurveda. Anybody else? These are the only participants today. So this is a very important medicinal plant. It is a rejuvenative, and it is known in Sanskrit as Amla. Amla means sour. Its fruits are slightly sour, and it's known as the Indian gooseberry. In Sanskrit, it is known as Amalaki. So do you know Triphala? Have you heard of Triphala? Or you don't even know Triphala? Triphala is a very important, very common, very popular formulation in Ayurveda. It means the three fruits. Triphala is used worldwide. And Amalaki is one of the ingredients of Triphala. So this plant, the fruits are used, and these fruits are made into medicines by combining with many other herbs. And its foremost effect on the human body is that it is supposed to be able to enhance longevity, or in other words, it slows down aging. So apart from that, of course, it's a very rich source of vitamin C and many other antioxidants. And if you want to know the botanical name is Emblica officinalis. So the plant is in the fresh form, and then here you can see it in the dry form. So in medicine we use it in both forms, both in the wet form as well as in the dry form, and in the dry form it is powdered. So today we are going to discuss about medicinal plants. We will discuss the main medicinal plants used in Ayurveda. Make a note of these medicinal plants and their uses. You can also confirm how many of these plants are available in your own location. And I would like to get a feedback. How many of these plants that we discussed today are actually available with you. So based on that, we will also plan our next class to include plants, more plants which you may be familiar with. So this plant has multiple uses. There are also cosmetic uses apart from advanced medicinal uses, and as I said, the most use of this plant is to prevent aging. And it's excellent for external use. It is used to cool the system. There's a very cooling effect. It's very good for the hair. It can help to retain hair color and also hair texture. So it is commonly mixed, cooked in oil. It's used to make hair oils. So if you use the oil of this plant on your head, then it has a very cooling effect on your eyes, on your nervous system, and it's a very good de-stressing agent. And internally, it has a slight laxative action, and it can pacify pitta. So even the juice of this fruits are recommended. If you take a whole glass, you should check both. How many grow and how many are available. Because depending on, I can advise what can be done with the plant, because if the fresh plant is available, then you can do some specific medicines. If the fresh plant is not available, then you can use the dry form. Yes, so this is one of the ingredients of Triphala. Amalaki is one of the ingredients of Triphala. So it's a really important plant to know when you study Ayurveda. I mean, you cannot say after studying Ayurveda that you do not know Triphala or that you do not know Amalaki. So usually the dry form in Triphala and as well as maybe dry Amalaki fruits may be available, but it may not be easy for you to get the fresh fruits. So the fresh fruit along with turmeric is an effective remedy for diabetes. I mean, it can prevent complications in diabetes. Those who take Triphala or those who take Amalaki juice along with turmeric can help prevent the development of diabetic complications like diabetic neuropathy or nephropathy or retinopathy and things like that. Yes. Do you get fresh fruits? Oh, okay. So that is the only disadvantage. So you can use the dry fruits. You can make powder of the dry fruit. You can even use this to make a paste of the dry powder and apply on the hair. It's good for the hair. But if you are not having good health of your upper respiratory system, then you should avoid using it on your head because it can be too cooling and it can aggravate your cold or fever. On the other hand, you can make just crush, soak the dry fruits in water and then squeeze and take that filtered juice of the dried fruits. Just soak it in water, then squeeze and take it, crush and squeeze and take it, That can be used instead of the fresh juice. But of course, if you can get the fresh juice, then you have some advantages. But still, it's good to know that you can use Amalaki. So Amalaki can be used for controlling pitta. It can be used for cooling the mind. It can be used for protection of the eyes. It can be used to prevent aging. So a regular use of Amalaki as a rasayana is said to enhance your lifespan. So these are the properties of Amalaki. So you know, rasa means the taste. So when you study an Ayurvedic herb, you need to look at their proper rasa, guna, virya, vipaka, karma, dosha, karma, and roga haratva. So what it rasa means the taste of the plants, and guna means the property, the virya means the potency, and vipaka means the post-digestive taste after digestion, what happens. Then karma means its actions, and dosha karma means on what doshas it will work, and roga haratva means on what diseases it will work. So you can see it has this herb has got all 5 tastes. So when you chew it, you will get a mixture of tastes. But it is generally more on the sour side and then astringent, and then you will feel the bitter taste. Except salt, it has got 5 tastes. And if you, after chewing fruit of Amalaki, if you drink a glass of water, then that water will taste very sweet. So it's slightly heavy and it is cold. It has a sweet post-digestive taste. It increases semen and it is rejuvenative. It pacifies all the 3 doshas. It's good for hemothermia in bleeding disorders and in diabetes and a host of other diseases. And although we say it pacifies through doshas, it's specifically useful for pitta, which means it pacifies pitta and does not really aggravate the other doshas. So it's one of the wonder drugs in Ayurveda. And a very important rejuvenative medicine is made out of this herb. It is very good for recovery from diseases, and this medicine is called as Chavanaprasha. This is a very important rejuvenative medicine in Ayurveda. This medicine is given for recovery after a serious illness, and this medicine is also administered along in treatment of cancer, in rheumatoid arthritis, and many immune diseases. This medicine called Chavanaprasha, in which Amalaki is the main ingredient, is actually used in very large quantities. It's administered almost like food in patients for a specific period of time to boost their immunity. So today we started with Amalaki, which is such an important Ayurvedic herb, and actually there is no real substitute. We need to try and get at least the dry fruits of Amalaki if you want to practice good Ayurveda. So this is the botanical name of the plant, and you can see that it works on all the dhatus. It has a slight laxative action. It specifically works on the eyes and skin and also hair. And it has got vitamin C, gallic acid, thymic acid, calcium, and phosphorus. It's specifically good for pitta diseases and constipation, diabetes, hemorrhoids, eczema, urinary tract infection, etc. So you can target, without the fear of disturbing other doshas, you can target pitta. And then we have Chavanaprasha, Brahmarasayana, Dhatri, Lekha. These are all the various formulations in which Amalaki is a major ingredient. So this is about Amalaki. Do you have any questions regarding this plant? Is this clear as an introduction to the plant? We will today be discussing individual plants because in the last 2 webinars we were talking about the basic concepts in Ayurveda, the pharmacology and other things. Yes, I mentioned if you are applying externally, then you should, especially on head, you should not do it if you have a cold or fever. It's not advised. This is when you are applying on your head as either an oil or as a paste. Then if you have fever or cold or running nose, then you should not apply because it will aggravate the condition. And if your stomach is extremely sensitive and you are getting loose bowels very much, then also you should avoid. On the whole, it's a very safe plant. It is comparatively really very safe. You can make a decoction of the dry fruits and also a paste. In our session on Ayurvedic pharmaceuticals and how to make oil. So you will need to make a decoction dry fruits and then also a paste of the powder, and then mix oil and then cook it till the water content is evaporated, and that's how you make the oil. So in our session on pharmaceuticals, I will actually explain. I hope you're able to see a big tree now. Yes, so this is again a very important herb in Ayurveda, and its name is Asoka. Have you heard of Asoka? Yes, so this is the flowers of this plant Asoka. No, that was king, but this is a plant. So this plant is very special in its use for women's diseases. It has the ability to protect the uterus and prevent excessive bleeding. So it is said to remove the sorrow of women. That is why it became known as Ashoka. Shoka in Sanskrit means sorrow. So Ashoka means without sorrow. And here without sorrow means actually no sorrow for women, because if they use this plant, then it can stop menstrual bleeding. So it's very helpful in diseases like endometriosis and then uterine bleeding, in menstrual cramps and such diseases. So it is the bark of the plant that is actually used. So this is the powder. The bark of the plant is taken and used, and you can see the powder here. So it's usually boiled and taken as water, or it is made as into a medicated wine. It's called Ashoka Ariston. So this is again having a cold action on the body. It is cold in potency. It can improve complexion. It stops bleeding. It's again, this is a plant which works on pitta, just like Amalaki. It's helpful in many conditions like worms, disorders of blood, but specifically it is used in the management of diseases. So it doesn't stop menstruation, it only regulates, which means it will prevent excessive bleeding, and it will give relief from the discomforts of menstruation pain and other problems. So it's widely used in Ayurveda. You can see it works on the blood, then Its specific action is on the female reproductive parts. So these are some of the chemicals that are seen: hematoxylin, thionin, ketosterol, and some glycols. So it's used in menorrhagia, dysmenorrhea, inflammatory conditions of the uterus, wounds, worms, and it also seems to have anti-cancer effect. There is also a viewpoint that this plant can prevent cervical cancer if administered in the risk population. So, do you have this plant in your place? Is it possible to obtain it? Because even in India, it's sometimes a bit difficult to get good Asoka bark, because the plant is not now so widely available. There's been a lot of commercial exploitation. It's sometimes adulterated. And so to get good quality Asoka is sometimes a challenge even in India. But this is Saraca indica, and again a very important medicinal plant. So next, you can see here that some of the studies have shown that this plant is helpful in skin cancer. There is a chemopreventive activity for Saraca Asoka. So it was specifically studied on skin carcinogenesis, and the studies indicates that Asoka may be helpful in prevention of skin cancer. So it has got a chemopreventive action. So here is the next plant. This is again a very, very important and famous plant in Ayurveda. Can you identify this? Okay, have you heard of the Indian ginseng? Such a famous plant? No. So it's called as Asvagandha. It is a very strong scent. It is an aphrodisiac, but very good in neurological diseases. Yes, that's why I said Asvagandha is a very famous plant in Ayurveda, and it's a very strong stimulant and aphrodisiac, and it's used in neurological diseases. It's used to improve sexual performance, and these are the roots. So this Asvagandha is again a very good rejuvenative. It's a rasayana. It can improve immunity. It strongly enhances immunity. So while Amalaki delays aging, Asvagandha improves immunity of the neurological system. So Asvagandha, these are the seeds and the fruits, and this root, it's a root that is actually really widely used in Ayurveda. And you can see it has got bitter and astringent taste. It is light and unctuous but very hot. Plant, unlike the earlier two plants which were very cold in potency, you can see that Asvagandha is hot. So it is sweet, and it increases the strength and stamina. It pacifies Vata and Kapha. While the earlier two plants were good to pacify Pitta, Asvagandha can increase Pitta. So we have to be a little bit careful when you use Asvagandha. The earlier two plants that we discussed do not have very major side effects, except that you have to be little careful when you give it to cold or fever and such other problems. Whereas ashwagandha is really overuse can create problems. It can aggravate pitta, and in some people it can even cause bleeding from the lungs or from your throat, or so you have to use it very usually. To take ashwagandha, you must only take it with milk. Should not directly use the powder. You must always combine it with milk. And there's another asparagus tubers. It will be best balanced if you use ashwagandha along with asparagus tubers, and this is called in Ayurveda as shatavari. So if you can use ashwagandha with shatavari, then it gives a very balanced effect. So it's very good in wasting, in cough, and in asthma and such conditions. So its botanical name is Withania somnifera. No, goat's milk is okay. No, yogurt is not substitute for milk. Goat's milk will be very good. If you can get goat's milk, you can use along with. So is this plant available in your place? Yes. Yeah. It's actually very widely sold all over the world. It's very good for the nervous system, the male reproductive system, and also for the respiratory system. And there are many chemical compounds which have been isolated. It's used in anxiety, in depression, in emaciation, in burnout syndrome, in paralysis, in fertility, in multiple sclerosis, sexual debility, and there are many formulations which contain ashwagandha. So that's again an important plant. So all the plants that we are discussing today are the master plants of Ayurveda. I mean, in Ayurveda we have about 1,000, and I'm introducing in a webinar maybe around 50 of them overall, because there's no time to cover all the 1,200, but these 50 are going to be really the most important ones. So you can see the main constituents are alkaloids and steroidal lactones, and these include chemicals like tropin and cuscohygrine. The leaves contain the steroidal lactones, vithanolides, and vithaferin A, which was the first to be isolated from the plant. So it has been found to be helpful in psychotherapy, I mean, in psychological illnesses, and it's been found to be better than psychotherapy. It improves concentration, it relieves fatigue, it helps better social functioning, gives vitality and overall quality of life. So here is again another important herb in Ayurveda. I don't know whether you recognize this, whether this plant is available. Have you heard of the plant Bala? Bala in Sanskrit means strength. So Ashwagandha means that which smells like a horse, and it also means that it gives you strength like a horse, Ashwagandha. So there we were talking about a different kind of strength, and in Bala we are talking about another kind of strength. So Bala gives strength to your muscles, and sometimes we combine Bala and Ashwagandha together to improve the immunity of the person. So this is again two species used in the name of Bala, and this is the root. It's the root of Bala that is used. So Bala is sweet and cold, and it is scraping. It pacifies all the three doshas. It's very helpful in managing diseases caused by vitiation of vata and blood, and also in pitta, and it can prevent the hyperactivity of vata. So if in diseases in which vata makes the body hyperactive, Bala is very helpful in stabilizing. So it has a very stabilizing action on the body, and there are many important formulations which Bala is an ingredient. Its botanical name is Sida cordifolia. Specifically acts on the Asti and Majja dhatus, and it can be a bit constipative. It works on the nerves, muscle, heart, and lungs. And people have isolated ephedrine also from this plant. It is helpful in vata diseases, in paralysis, in neuralgia, in rheumatism, and also in sexual debility. And the most common ingredients are Baladi Kashaya, Baladi Simuladi. These are all formulations in which is an ingredient. Now, from the safety side, this is not a plant that has any major safety concerns, but there are reports that people who have high blood pressure should use it with caution. It's sometimes reported to have increased the blood pressure. So otherwise, this is used to strengthen the body in later stage of diseases and is administered along with Asvagandha. Whereas Asvagandha is very pitta aggravating, Bala is pitta pacifying. So that's the difference between, although both of them increase the strength. And if you compare the action on the sexual potency, then Ashwagandha is actually more stronger than Bala. So Bala has been said to have an anti-inflammatory action, and it encourages liver regrowth, and it also has some psychostimulant properties affecting the central nervous system. And some of the studies has shown that it has got antipyretic, anti-ulcerogenic, and all those properties. So this is about Bala. Yes, it is not a very popular use. In Ayurveda, it is not used as an antipyretic. So I was just mentioning that some studies have reported an antipyretic effect, but I cannot endorse that because in Ayurveda, it's used only for improving strength. So after treating the major disease in neurological disorders, in disorders where the patient is left with very poor neurological strength or muscle strength, or if there's a breakdown and feels weak, then we give Bala. So antipyretic activity is not reported in Ayurveda, but some studies have reported it. So, antipyretic means, for fever. It is reducing fever. Antipyretic means that which can bring the temperature of the body. So here is another plant. Can anybody recognize this plant? It's not okay. Maybe not. It may not be familiar. This is a plant called as Bhringaraja in Sanskrit. It's again a very interesting plant. And its botanical name is Eclipta alba. Oh, you cannot see the slide? So maybe I faced the same problem some time back. If you're not able to see the slide, you could just try refreshing or relogging. Yes, sometimes this happens that the previous slide keeps popping up and then you may have to relog in or you may have to refresh your page. So you could please try that. So I can see the plant now. This is Eclipta alba. So this got a white flower, and plant is very good for the liver. It's very good for the lungs, and it's also externally very good for the hair. So along with Amalaki, Bhringaraja can be made into an excellent oil for application on the head. This is very good for bringing down excessive stress. So if you can cook the juice or the decoction of Amalaki fruits along with the juice of Eclipta alba, you make an oil and apply it on your head, then it cools down your system drastically, and it can also be a very good de-stressing agent. And interestingly, this plant has also been found to be very good for the liver. It's used in liver diseases. So here's a close-up of the flower. The flowers are actually very small, and what you see here is an enlarged picture. And you can see here these are the oils, dried powder, and the oils that are extracted. And what's interesting is that you can use, this is a good hair oil for people who have respiratory problems. If you can make a hair out of Bhringaraja, then people who are having respiratory disorders can use that without fear of an aggravation of their condition. So this is Bhringaraja. So you can see it is hot in potency, it is dry, it is pungent and bitter taste. It is in spite of being hot for the skin, and it colors the hair. So if people use this at a very young age, it is said that they can be prevented from aging fast. And it's also a rasayana. It pacifies kapha and vata, which means that if you don't use it carefully, you can bring pitta out of balance. And it's used in a wide range of conditions, from edema to poison to asthma to cough, worms and anemia and conditions like that. It is also good for anemia. It helps to improve the amount of iron in the system. And so that's another important plant described in Ayurvedic texts. And it works on Rakta, Asthi and Majja dhatus, and specifically on the hairs and lungs. And ecliptin and vedololactone are two ingredients that have been studied. It's useful in hair fall, graying of hair, and also sleep disorder. And there are many formulations. This is to be applied on head. So if you want a medicine, an oil to work on the whole body, irrespective of a specific organ, then you have to put it on the head, in the crown of the head, in the center of the head. So that is the Ayurvedic concept. That then it has a systemic effect. Apply on specific parts, then it action only on those specific parts. So the center of the, yes, you can use as nasya for effect on hair, but for systemic effect, you should apply on center of head. Okay, is that clear? So, okay. So then we move on to the next plant. Before that, here are some of the notes on this Bhringaraja, Eclipta. It is reported to improve hair growth and color, and a study in rats showed that some of the extracts of this plant decreased the time it took for hair to begin to grow. So it is supposed to promote growth of hair, but you cannot expect dramatic results. It cannot prevent natural graying of hair, but it has been reported and experienced that it can prevent premature graying of hair, and it can improve the growth of the hair and also the quality, the texture of the hair. So this is the some kind of study that shows that yes, it improves growth. Now we come to yet another important Ayurvedic medicinal plant. Can anybody recognize this? So I have chosen only the most important medicinal plants in Ayurveda. Does anybody recognize this? Can you say what this plant is? Okay, so this plant is called as Brahmi. It's a very powerful brain tonic. It is supposed to improve memory and higher mental functions. It's usually given for children to improve their higher mental functions as a nervine tonic. And it's also used in the treatment of epilepsy. And the regular use of this plant makes your mind very sattvic. In fact, it has a very calming effect on the mind. So people who tend to get extremely nervous, anxiety, angry, and will benefit from using this plant. So its botanical name, we will look into its botanical name. Here is a close-up of this plant. And this is how it looks when it is harvested. You can make green powder and also fresh juice from this plant, and it's sometimes the juice is administered. Now this plant is very bitter, it's astringent and sweet, it has a laxative action. In fact, if you drink some large amount of the juice of this plant, then you get a laxative action, and it's very cold and sweet. It stabilizes lifespan. It increases intellect, life, and memory. So here is the second plant which increases lifespan. The first one was Amalaki. And along with Amalaki, you have also Brahmi. Both of them enhance lifespan, which means they can reduce or slow down aging. This is also specifying all the three doshas. It can specify Pitta. It's used in a variety of diseases, like skin disease. It's used because it can cleanse the body. It's used in Pandu or in diabetes, in disorders of the blood, in cough, in poison, swelling, and fever. So it has specifically an action on the body to neutralize poison. So this works on the Rakta and Majja dhatus, and it is also a diuretic. If you take a lot of Bacopa monnieri, it can slightly cause diuresis. Its effect specifically acting on the brain, the nerves, and the skin, and many chemical constituents have been isolated from this plant. It's used for memory loss, in psychic diseases, in epilepsy, insomnia, and also, hair loss, stress-related hair loss, especially if you lose hair, if you're very stressed. It's very good de-stressing agent, and also improves the sharpness of your intelligence, and many common formulations are using Brahmi. I'm not sure whether you get Brahmi in your place. Do you get it? Yes, you could check because as far as I know, this plant is quite popular outside India also. So many of these plants, actually, I have introduced these plants to a group in Germany, and many of them are able to actually get these plants. So, in fact, these plants were picked up as the most important plants that an Ayurvedic physician must have in order to treat patients effectively. So that is about Brahmi. Brahmi is said to have antioxidant and cell protective effects, which is why it is said slow down aging. You mean vertigo? Not reported. I have not tried it. It's not been mentioned for that. So this is known to enhance cerebral blood flow, and so there are many interesting studies. It is supposed to prevent neurodegeneration and also improvement of cognitive function. So there are some scientific studies which show that the traditional uses of Brahmi may be justified. So, okay, yeah, this is Bacopa monnieri. So, and it requires a lot of water. It's almost a semi-aquatic plant. So here's the next plant, and can you identify this by any chance? I'm not sure. This is a plant which is again a very popular plant from India, and perhaps it grows only in India. And I will not keep you guessing. This is called in Sanskrit as Candana and in English as sandal. Have you heard of sandal? Yes, so sandal is a very important tree. And even in India, it grows only in specific regions. And there is the oil of sandal, which is pacifying. And the herb itself is extremely cooling. It's one of the benchmarks for cooling activity in Ayurveda. So it's said to be Shita, it's extremely cooling. And so this is the heartwood, it's the wood of sandal that is used, and sandal has to grow in specific climatic conditions to produce that oil which gives it a characteristic smell. And we use the wood of the plant, and there's a religious practice in India that you rub the sandalwood and make a paste and apply it in between the eyebrows as a tilak. So you apply it between the eyebrows. It is said to cool down your Ajna chakra. Ajna chakra is one of the chakras in the body. It Ajna chakra and then makes your nervous system very calm. It has a very calming effect on your body even by external application. But in medicine for internal use, so here you can see this is the sandal paste. Can you see the sandal paste here? The paste that is actually taken by rubbing, just like this is mixed with water and rubbed, and when you rub the sandalwood you get the sandal paste. And here is the volatile oil. It's quite expensive, very expensive, but very, very aromatic, and this is extremely having a cooling action on the mind of the person. So it's very cold, very cooling. It's dry and light, and it's bitter and sweet. It causes happiness of the mind. So it's a very sattvic medicine, and it pacifies pitta. So its sandal is very good for relief from fatigue, from wasting, from poison, from thirst. and disorders of the blood and burning sensation. So sandal is again a pitta pacifying plant, medicine. So if you look at it deeply, it works on the Rakta Dhatu, the skin and the nerves, and there are some alkaloids which have been isolated. This plant is used all for mental diseases. So there was another plant he mentioned for mental illnesses, which was Brahmi. Now here's another plant which is used for diseases of the mind. Even Asvagandha is used for diseases of the mind. And this is used in liver diseases also, as well as skin diseases. And there are many medicines in which it is an ingredient. More than depression, it's helpful in anxiety, and violent tendencies, anger, and things like that. So some studies have been done which shows that sandal oil can have antimicrobial and antioxidant properties as well as anti-diabetic activity. But these are all not described as much in Ayurveda, though sandal is an ingredient of many important formulations. So the lesson that we can learn about sandal is that it is very pitta pacifying, and it's very cold, and it has an action on the mind and on the blood and on pitta. Now here is another plant. Are you able to identify maybe the next slide? Does anybody know this plant? Or is there any problem with the slides? Okay, so this plant is again a wonder herb in Ayurveda. It is known as Amrita. No, this is Amrita, not Shatavari. The fruits may look a little bit similar, but this plant is Amrita. And it is known in botanical name as Tinospora cordifolia. It's a very powerful immune stimulant. It's a very powerful immunomodulator. A lot of studies have shown that it can enhance your WBC count and help you to recover from infection and other immunocompromised conditions. And this plant is called Amrita because even if you cut the plant, it will grow back again very quickly. And even if you put a small cutting in the soil, it will very quickly regenerate. So the concept in Ayurveda is that it helps to regenerate the body. It's also a very good liver tonic. It can regenerate the liver cells also. And it's very good in immunocompromised conditions. And it's extremely good anti-inflammatory agent. And very good in the management of rheumatoid arthritis. In fact, we can say this is one of the best medicines for rheumatoid arthritis. It can help to keep the inflammation of rheumatoid arthritis under control. So here is a closer look at the plant. See the plant, this is how the stem looks at it. With a green stem, it looks like this. So this plant, which is popularly known in Ayurveda as Guduchi, has a bitter taste, it's heavy, it's hot, and it's digestive, and it is a very good blood purifier. It pacifies all the three doshas. And there are very few plants. This is very important about this plant, is that it can pacify Vata and Kapha. and at the same time also Pitta. So usually medicines which specify Vata and Pitta, Kapha will increase Pitta, and those which decrease Pitta will increase Vata and Kapha. So this is one of those rare medicines which can do both at the same time. So it is used in rheumatoid arthritis, in Pitta dominant fevers, in hyperacidity, and also in jaundice. So this is Guduchi. It's a very important herb. Its actions on the doshas are on the rasa, on rakta and medas, and in the stomach it can make the person slightly constipated, and it works on the intestine, on the joints, especially it's a very good tonic for the joints, inflammatory conditions. It works on the immune system and the liver, and it's indicated in indigestion, fever, anemia, cough, breathlessness, rheumatic fever, rheumatoid arthritis. It, according to Ayurveda, it's really very strong anti-inflammatory agent, and it is the first choice, and it's sometimes used in combination with other herbs, so that you can target it to different areas and locations in the body. So it's been found to be effective in allergic conditions, and in fact people have also tried Tinospora, cordifolia and turmeric together, curcuma together, and if you use both together, it has been found that it's very helpful in preventing damage to liver. So if you're taking this herb and turmeric together, then you can prevent damaging effect on the liver. So here is the next plant, which also may not be easy to recognize with this picture. This is a herb from which a gum is produced, and this gum will look like this. Can you recognize? Excellent. So this is the first plant that has been properly identified. So I'm very glad to hear that you could identify it. This is a very important herb in Ayurveda. It's used to clear the srotas, and it's a very good srotas, or the channels. No, this is different. Well, this is a gum exudate, and it has been well studied for its action on cholesterol. So it is a lipid lowering. It has the ability to lower the lipid in the body, and so it is used for atherosclerosis, which means a blockage of the artery by a deposit of fat. This herb has been found to be very useful, and it is also used as an anti-inflammatory agent. So not just alone, but in combination with other herbs, like you can add Tinospora and other such anti-inflammatory herbs are added to this gum, and then it produces very strong anti-inflammatory effects. So is this available in your place? The problem is that this plant grows only in deserts. So in very dry deserts, this plant is growing, and so it's not easy to cultivate it in very large quantities. So that's one challenge. Is this plant available in your location? Okay. So you don't get it in a shop? Okay, in some places available. But some of these are so important in your practice, so you must find some way to get it, because the products of Gugulu are used in a wide range of conditions. So it's used also in thyroid in combination with some herbs. It's used for thyroid, it's used for prostate, it's used for rheumatoid arthritis, it's used for tonsillitis, it's used for such a wide range of conditions. So this is really an important plant. So let's look at its properties. It has got multiple tastes. It's useful in hypothyroidism with other herbs, not alone. There is a product called Kanchanara Gugulu. So it is very hot in potency. It's a rejuvenative. It promotes healing of tissues and it improves the digestion. It pacifies Vata and Kapha. And it also does not aggravate Pitta so much, but you have to be a little careful when you use it. It's not recommended in very early acute conditions of the disease. And so it's very helpful in swellings, in growths, and in such conditions. Now I am facing a problem with the slides. Okay. So here it's on this plant. So when you take Gugulu, it means that the cholesterol levels gets reduced in the. But the Ayurveda does not recommend the use of Gugulu as a standalone drug. And so the studies have also shown contradictory results. It's best to use Gugulu. Okay. Yes, later when we study about formulations, Gugulu becomes very important, even if you cannot get access to the original plant or it would be good to try to get preparations made out of Gugulu. So this is the herb. It's called Commiphora whitei. It works on Asthi and Majja dhatus. It's slightly laxative. It works on the joints, intestines, and these are some of the chemicals that are found. It's useful in chronic wounds, diabetes, in Vata conditions, in asthma, skin disease, swelling, and these are some of the most common formulations in which it is an ingredient. So this I already mentioned about this, and we go on to the next plant. So maybe it's not easy for you to recognize this plant by seeing this picture. I'm not sure whether by seeing the next picture you're able to identify. No, it is a very important ingredient of Triphala. So the other ingredient of Triphala was Amalaki, which we already discussed. So after Amalaki, there are two more ingredients. Yes, Amalaki was one of the ingredients we already discussed. This is another one. So any idea what this is? What are the ingredients of Triphala? Those who know about the three ingredients of Triphala can make a guess. Exactly. So this is Haritaki, the main ingredient of Triphala, and its botanical name is Terminalia chebula. This is also such an important herb in Ayurveda. It can cook and clean the body. And there's a saying that if you keeping Haritaki with you is like being taken care of by 10 mothers. Haritaki does the work in your body, work that actually is equal to that of 10 mothers, which means it takes care of your system. It's a rejuvenative and it's a purgative. So if you take Haritaki, and then you will get a purgation. But it is not just cleansing your bowels, it cleanses the whole channels in the body. So it actually clears up all the channels. It cooks all the unnecessary waste in the body, brings them to the alimentary tract, and then eliminates. So for that reason, it is used for removal of ama. This is one of the best medicines for removal of ama from the body. You can see here's a close-up. Actually, the seeds are removed and the external coat is taken. And if you make a decoction of 5 to 10 grams of this dried fruit and drink it, then you will get purgation. So this again, like Amalaki, has 5 tastes without salt. It's a laxative and a purgative. It is hot and it is pungent. And this is said to be very good for digestion, and it promotes life, specifies kapha and vata. But one of the dangers of this plant is that if you use it alone, it increases dryness in your body. And it also reduces the shukra dhatu or semen. So it can cause temporary impotency. It can cause temporary impotency in your system. So that is not advised for very long-term use, but in combination, it's very helpful. This plant is also very good in removing, even more than gugulu, this is helpful in removing excess fat. It can reduce cholesterol. It's good for fatty liver. It can give relief from fat deposits in the liver. So this is the action of this plant. It clears the channels, cleans the dhatus and medas. It's a laxative. It affects the spleen and liver, especially cleans liver from excess fat. Nowadays, we know fatty liver is a very common problem. It's used in skin diseases, in diabetes, in hepatitis, hemorrhoids, and fistula. And there are many of the common formulations that you can see here. And there are many studies which have shown that it is a very good lipid lowering agent. It is also some analgesic, antipyretic, anti-inflammatory activity, and so some of the studies have confirmed these actions. So this is indeed pepper. So pepper is such an important spice and medicine in Ayurveda. What you saw was the pepper plant and green fruits, which when dried becomes black pepper. And when we remove the outer skin, it becomes white after drying. So when it is ripe, it is red. So you can see the 4 colors. And this is such a strong medicine in Ayurveda. So it's very pungent in taste. It is very light. It is hot. And it can reduce semen. And it improves appetite. It is a digestive stimulant. It reduces kapha and vata, but increases pitta very much. So we have to be very careful when using this in conditions pitta is aggravated. It's used in bronchial asthma, in colicky pain. It's good for worms and also for loss of appetite. That's an ingredient of the 3 pungents or trikatu. So this includes pepper, long pepper, and dried ginger. These together is known as trikatu or 3 pungents. So this is the botanical name. It's Piper nigrum. It clears the srotas and cleans the dhatus and medas. This is also very good in removing excess cholesterol from the system. That is why there is a practice of sprinkling this pepper on eggs and other fat substances. It generally reduces urination, and its main action is the digestive system. It also removes phlegm from your sinus. its major ingredient is piperine. And sinusitis, dyspepsia, and bronchitis are the conditions in which it is mainly used. And some of the major formulations are listed here. So I'm sure pepper is available in your place. Yes. So the main risk is that pepper can be an irritant. It can aggravate pitta, and that is what we have to be careful about. So in bleeding disorders or where pitta is aggravated, and even in high fevers, we are not supposed to use pepper because it can aggravate pitta. So it has been shown that one of the most important functions of pepper is that can improve the absorption of other substances, especially medicines, into the human body. So when we take pepper along with other medicines, their bioavailability is greatly enhanced, which means they get better absorbed into the system. So pepper contains small amounts of safrole, a mildly carcinogenic compound. So it's usually eliminated from people who have very sensitive mucous membranes. And in Ayurveda, black pepper is considered to be better than chilies. So it's more safer. So what Ayurveda says is that gently fry pepper with a little ghee, and then it becomes extremely safe. So that small amount of safrole, which is a carcinogenic agent, is removed when you slightly fry pepper very gently with very little ghee. So piperine enhances thermogenesis of lipid and accelerates energy metabolism in the body. And so these are all the effects of pepper. So to summarize, pepper is vata kapha. It increases pitta. It mainly works in the digestive system, on lipid metabolism, on cholesterol, and things like that. So a very important thing is piperine. So if you mix pepper and turmeric, then the turmeric is better absorbed to the system. So here is another plant, the next plant, which is a. So have you seen this grass in your own place? Very, very carefully. Are you able to identify this grass? Okay, so this is called as the nut grass. So the root of the grass is very hard, like it, and it has got a very strong aroma. So this is how the root tuber looks like. It's very hard, and this is extremely important medicine in Ayurveda. It's called musta. You can just check whether this grass grows in your region. So the Ayurvedic name is musta, and this plant actually grows like a weed. And you can see this is how it looks. When you pluck the grass, you will find these. Okay, yeah. But this is a very easily available herb, and you could even source the tubers from other countries and also from India. And this is a medicine for treatment of diseases in children, and especially digestive disorders. Especially helpful. So it's very good in diarrhea, fever in children especially. And it's very good tonic for the digestion. So it is bitter and pungent in taste and astringent, and it's dry and cold, and reduces bowel movements. It's a digestive stimulant, digestive. It reduces kapha and pitta, and it's useful in fever, in anorexia, in worm, diarrhea. So out of the plants that we discussed so far, is there even a plant which grows in your own place? I found that some of the plants you could get from the market. Curious to know how many of these plants that we discussed so far actually grows in your location. So this plant is working on rasa and rakta, and it has an effect of concentratory, astringent. Okay, and it works on the GIT, the gastrointestinal system, and it's helpful in digestion, malabsorption problems. So it's also a good medicine for irritable bowel syndrome in combination with some other herbs, especially the type. No, there is another herb which is used for ascaris, that is Emblica ribes. This is mentioned for use in worms. This herb, Emblica ribes, is found effective against ascaris. So musta is not the primary medicine for worms, but it is used along with other herbs. The most important or major drug in Ayurveda for worms is Emblica ribes, Vidanga. So this is used for fever, nausea, inflammation, pain reduction, and many other disorders. Many pharmaceutically important ingredients have been created from this plant, and so that's some stuff. Go to the next plant. Can you identify this one? You will certainly regret not having identified it. So here is another picture of the plant. These are the leaves. This is again world famous. Many insecticides have been developed from this plant. It's very much useful for management of skin diseases. So you can still try to guess. Yes, Susan, this is actually the neem is such an important plant, and its leaves, its flowers, and its all bark, its gum, all these things are used in medicine. So it's specifically recommended in Ayurveda. So you can see here, these are the neem seeds, this is the neem bark, and these are the twigs which are used as a toothbrush, and this is neem oil. So all these things are used for medicinal purposes in Ayurveda, and neem is a powerful skin tonic. It's used in skin disease in Ayurveda mainly, and for purification of blood, and also for management of fevers, and it reduces swelling. Yes, it is an insecticide and also a mosquito repellent. It's true. So this is known as nimba in Sanskrit. It's got a bitter taste, an astringent taste. It is cold, and it increases digestive fire, but it's very distasteful. It's very bitter and not so easy to consume, and it reduces kapha, but it may increase vata. So if you overdose neem, then it aggravates vata. It's helpful in vomiting, in wounds, in nausea, in skin diseases, and also very useful in the managed diabetes. So these are in which neem is indicated. So it works on rasa and rakta, and it causes dryness of the intestine. It's mainly working on the skin, and then also on the liver and spleen. It's also used in the management of malaria along with other herbs and substances, and these are the most common formulations in which neem is used. So nimbin, nimbinin, and nimbin are three famous compounds extracted from neem. And nimbinin is an antibacterial ingredient, and these are sufficient quantities in the neem. So these are the components which are serving insecticide. So continue with the next plant. So yes, you need to tell the full name. Can anybody else identify it? I'm sure this is being used also very widely on place. So this is the plant. Yes, exactly. This is asparagus, Asparagus racemosa. A species that you may be using maybe is a little different from what is mentioned in Ayurveda. So we use this specific species called racemose, and you can see the tubers which are in Ayurveda. Whereas in the West, so the tubers of Shatavari, use the tubers or the shoots. So I understand that asparagus is used as a vegetable in the West. Yes. Do you use tubers? Do you also use tubers? Okay. So in Ayurveda, use are mainly the tubers. What you can see in the picture. These are the tubers. You can see this is how the tuber looks. And this is how it looks when it is dried. We have to peel off the outer skin. And this is how the roots look when you harvest it. And this is the powder. And Shatavari is said to be bitter and sweet. And it should be heavy, and it will be heavy and unctuous, and it is cold, and its post-digestive series is sweet. Now, Shatavari is also very good regenerative, and it is specifically a spermatagogue and a galactagogue, which means it can promote the secretion, the formation of semen, as well as breast milk. It's used in lactating to increase the quantity of breast milk. It pacifies vata and pitta, and it is useful in urinary obstruction, in menstruation, in bleeding, and also in fertility. So this is used for diseases of the female reproductive system. So a herb which is helping to regulate female menstrual cycles. Shatavari is said to have phytoestrogens, and so it has an estrogenic effect on the female reproductive system, and it can also prevent bleeding. So it is used in combination with herbs like Asoka, which we already discussed earlier. Along with those herbs, it is used in menstrual disorders where there's excess bleeding, and it's also used to promote the secretion of breast milk, and it's very strong. So it works on the rasa and recta, diuretic and slightly laxative. It works on the skin system and reproductive system. It's got a lot of saponin, phytoestrogens. It's also helpful in urinary tract infections. And in fact, it can prevent the mucosa from getting damaged. It's also an anti-inflammatory. So today we discussed a couple of herbs which are specifically used in female menstrual disorders, and one of which was Asoka, and this is the second one. So as I said, it has got a very protective effect on the mucosa, and there is a study which showed that shatavari, if you take shatavari, it can inhibit the release of gastric chloric acid, and thereby it protects the gastric mucosa from acid damage. And so also in the postmenopausal period, women have a lot of problems, especially osteoporosis. Study which that if you take eggshells along with shatavari or asparagus, eggshells along with asparagus is very good uh, in preventing osteoporosis in women. So in that way, shatavari is actually also a very important plant for gynecological disorders. So here is the next plant. I'm not sure you're able to recognize it. Maybe now yes, with the plant it's difficult. I'm sure. Can you recognize? Can anybody recognize this herb? Yes, it is ginger. I don't know why today many of us are finding it difficult for the slide to get displayed. So maybe it's because there are so many pictures on today's presentation. Usually it used to be text, but today we have pictures, which is probably the reason why it's not displaying. And so here, this is ginger. And in Ayurveda, there's a difference between wet ginger and dry ginger. Both are used medicinally, but the properties are slightly different. In Ayurveda, in most of the medicines, dry ginger which is used. Red ginger is much more stronger irritant, and so Ayurveda uses it only in limited situations. So here is the form, and what you saw earlier is the wet form. Is everybody wet form? Have you? Yes. So we use dry ginger in Ayurveda mostly, and ginger and pepper. There's a difference. Both are pungent. Both are hot. But ginger has a sweet after digestive taste, whereas pepper has a pungent post digestive taste. So ginger is not as harmful as pepper for pitta. Ginger is not as much aggravating pitta. If you are a pitta person and you need some digestive, if you also need to eliminate your from your system, then instead of pepper, you must choose ginger. So that's a very important practical application. It increases semen, it's fertility, whereas pepper will reduce semen. It's good for the heart, it's a digestive, it is kapha vata pacifying, it removes obstructions, it is very good for flatulence, it prevents colicky pain in the heart disease, as well as digestive disorders. So it works on the rasa and shukra dhatu. It again causes slightly, can constipate your bowels if you overuse it, and it's good for specifically the heart. It's also good for the digestive system, and there are a lot of chemical constituents isolated from ginger. It's indicated in rheumatic fever, for digestion of pharma. It's in digestion, intestinal colic, cough, and asthma. And there are many. Some of the names here indicate the important formulations in which it is an ingredient. So this is ginger. Ginger is also very good for inflammation. It's also an anti-inflammatory agent. With and jack is a very good medicine for chronic inflammation. Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Okay. So there seems to be some internet issues. Okay, so that's ginger, and you can see some of the studies. So ginger can also, it's very good for diabetic patients, because if you take ginger, then prevent the damage to the various organs of the body caused by glycation and products, and it's very helpful in some types of diarrhea. And ginger has also been shown to prevent cancer further, although it cannot completely cure cancer. It can put a check on the growth of cancers. And ginger can also lower cholesterol, and it's are also reported to have effect on arthritis. But all of these claims have not been completely scientifically substantiated. Here is the next plant. This is a very sacred plant in the Indian tradition. Can you identify plant, anybody? Oh, coming up very slowly, I think, because these are pictures. Okay, so can you identify this plant? Okay, so you do not know this plant. So this plant is known as Tulasi. Have you heard of Tulasi? The holy. It's such an important plant. It's grown in the courtyards and in the compounds of the homes in India. It's said to be able to oxygenate the surroundings. It's a good insect repellent. It's also a mosquito repellent. So Tulasi is a very interesting plant. You can see these are the dried leaves. Do you get Tulasi in your place? It's very good for chest congestion. It's good for removing phlegm from the body. It's good for cough. Okay, yes, it's good for cough. But there's a danger that Tulasi can cause impotency. It has been found to reduce sperm count. And in fact, some tribes use Tulasi for as a contraceptive, but it's not an effective contraceptive, but it causes temporary suppression of spermatogenesis. And excessive use can also cause bleeding. It's extremely pitta aggravating. But otherwise, it's good. Its common uses are for fever, for poison, insect bites, especially for insect bites. If you have, it's a home remedy. That if there's insect bite, you can take a few tulsi leaves, a little bit of turmeric, and then neem, and if you apply, then you get very good immediate relief from the sting. So it's used in fever, it's used in cold, it's very helpful in cough, and also in sinusitis. And it's also a very good deworming herb. So we discussed earlier that the two other plants, Musta and then Embellia gripes. So along with that, Tulasi is also a very good agent. So Tulasi has a pungent and bitter taste. It is light and dry and very hot, and it's good for heart. It causes burning skin. It's digestive, and it aggravates pitta, and it pacifies kapha and vata. It is useful in worms. It removes bad odor from the mouth. It's used in skin diseases, in fever, and these are some of the uses. And you can see it reduces shukra, or the semen, and it acts on the intestine also, and it's used in fever, indigestion, asthma, cough, insect poisoning, and also toxicity. About tulasi, we have to be a little careful not to overuse it, but usually it's only a few leaves or 5 ml of the juice is taken mixed with honey. That's a good remedy for cough. So tulasi can also sometimes be used for painkiller because it's got lots of eugenol inside it. So there are also indications saying that tulasi could be protect us against radiation exposure and isolated some bacteria. This also seems to have some bactericidal activity against E. coli and Staphylococcus aureus and such other microorganisms. So this is tulasi. And then you can see the next herb. I don't know whether you can identify this. I'll not try to keep you guessing. This is Alpinia. You've heard of Alpinia galanga? Have you heard of Alpinia galanga? It's very similar to ginger, but it's not ginger. This is Alpinia. It's called as galanga. So in India, it's a slightly different species. So it's called Alpinia calcarata. So it's a slightly different species. This is a very strong medicine used for swelling, for treating swelling joints. It's very useful in treatment of sinus inflammation, and especially in the management of rheumatoid arthritis. So its rasna is tikta, it's hot and pungent, and it digests ama, it pacifies kapha and vata, and it's especially helpful in managing swelling, vata diseases, joint swellings. It's also used in all conditions of congestion in joints, in lungs, and other areas where there is accumulation of mucus. This herb is found to be very effective. So it works and the bone tissues. It's slightly laxative, works on the muscles and joints, and it's useful in vata diseases, rheumatic fever, and asthma. And so some of the major formulations names are listed. So it's used for many of these purposes worldwide, Alpinia galanga. But as I said, in India, we use a slightly different species. And so it's known to have many components which should justify its use in diseases like bronchitis, heart disease, chronic enteritis, renal calculus, and such other diseases. So now we go on to the next plant. Can you identify the plant? Maybe not by looking at this picture. Maybe now, yes. Can you identify? This is a very, very valuable plant, maybe all over the world now. So this is called as yellow gold. Maybe now it's identifiable. This is turmeric or curcuma. So most of you know about turmeric. So we will have a very quick review of what turmeric is in Ayurveda. So it is pungent and bitter, it's dry, hot, and it improves cognition. There are a lot of cosmetic uses for turmeric, like improvement of complexion. It neutralizes toxins, and it is specifying kapha and pitta. But the most important thing is it's also a very good anti-inflammatory agent, and it is known to help in prevention of cancer. Since cancer is a condition that is caused by long-standing inflammation, regular use of turmeric is said to be preventive. So it's useful in a lot of skin diseases and also very useful in the management of diabetes. So there's a host of uses for turmeric, and it's also said to be helpful in management diseases along diseases like Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, dementia, and also Alzheimer's disease. And it works on the Rakta Dhatu. It has a constitutive effect on the stomach. It's specifically working on the skin and diabetes and anemia. And so these are some of the major formulations. So to summarize, the major uses are in diabetes, in inflammation, in poison, skin, complexion of skin, and then it's also an antiseptic and very often used as the first aid for wounds to prevent them from becoming infected. So these are some of the points, and it's important to know that turmeric is not so easily absorbed in the body, especially curcumin is not absorbed. So I've repeated this several times that you use also a little bit of pepper, then it gets much better absorbed into the system. So here is the next plant. Can you identify? I'm sure at least this is available. I hope. Exactly. So this is pomegranate, and so this should be available. And in Ayurveda, so you can see here, this is known as dadima. It's a very important herb. It's fruit rind, or the outer bark of the fruit, is used in medicine. So it's extremely good for protection of the mucosa of the alimentary tract from acid damage. Very good in the management of ulcers. It's good in GERD. It's good in peptic ulcer. It's good in hyperacidity. And it's also good in diarrhea. So the root bark is mainly used in Ayurveda, and the fruit as such is said to be very good for anemia, and this is administered to pregnant women. But it's a root bar, the fruit bark, which is actually used in medicine. So it is sweet. There are two types of pomegranate. The extremely sweet one is recommended, and it increases blood, and the main important thing is that it pacifies pitta. It is a very good pitta pacifying fruit. And the fruit bark has a lot of tannin, And if you take the decoction of the fruit bark, then it produces a protective coating on the mucous membrane of your intestines, and that prevents, acidity and other problems. Yes, to some extent, yes. So it's helpful in ulcerative colitis, along with musta. Musta was a grass which I described a little earlier. You can go back to the slides and check that out. So musta and pomegranate together is very good for ulcerative colitis. But if the bleeding is more, then you need to add few other substances. So these are its overall actions. So it's good in anemia, in general worm infestation, for hemorrhage, diarrhea, and intestinal ulcer. So it's used for the management of diarrhea in combination with certain other herbs. And there are many interesting studies, and it shows that the seeds should also be eaten. And it's not a good practice to just take the juice and remove the seeds. The seed contains excellent source of dietary fiber and some of the micronutrients. There are some studies which have also shown that pomegranate is very helpful in, preventing heart disease and also LDL oxidation, macrophage oxidative status. So, pomegranate on long-term use has been found to help in removing the blocks that cause cardiovascular disease. So it has also been found to reduce hypertension. So it's overall a good medicine, supportive medicine for heart diseases. It is the bark of the fruit, the outer cover of the fruit. Dry and use it. So that it's the outer cover which has got the maximum medicinal properties. The fruit as such is a good nutritional supplement. So that's about pomegranate. So we might have to complete just one or two more plants. So I don't know whether you are aware of this. So this was a very plant discovered from India, and it is called as Holarina antidysentrica. In Sanskrit, it's called as Kutaja. So it's specifically it's used in amoebic dysentery. It's got a hemostatic action, which means it's when bleeding in hands. And its seeds have a slightly different effect. Seeds are even skin diseases, purifies blood, but of the stem is useful for bleeding piles, for intestinal bleeding, and also for dysentery. So I'm not sure whether this plant is available in your place. But this is a very important plant. It became famous because of its action on dysentery, and it is pungent and astringent. It's dry and cold, and it's digestive stimulant, reduces kapha and pitta, but can aggravate vata, and it is used in blood and skin disorders, in hemorrhoids, that is piles, and also in diarrhea and dysentery. So its action is on Rakta Dhatu, it's antidiarrheal, it's an intestine and the skin, and it's used in diarrhea, skin, hemorrhoids, and dysentery, as I mentioned. And there are studies which showed that this plant, Hollerina antidysenterica or Kudacha, may be useful in the management of kitty power type of psoriasis. So there are also studies which shows that this herb may be effective in the management of amebiasis. So this is about Kudacha, and we come to the last plant for discussion today. This may also, I'm not sure this plant is available in place. So I write down the name. This is called as Sasuria lapa. It's a name in India. It's called in Sanskrit, and it's a very hot and powerful plant for removal of kapha from the system. It's so powerful that it can liquefy kapha. It is not advised, and it's very good for removing swelling. It's very helpful in giving relief from muscular aches, and it's used in the management of rheumatoid arthritis, in cough, and in edema as a whole. And there's a very important oil which is prepared in Ayurveda called Kollam chukadi oil, which is what makes herb very famous in India and in the Ayurvedic treatment. And this oil is used externally, joint swelling, pain, muscle fatigue, muscle cramps, and it just heats up muscle into the blood circulation and gives almost, yes, not for venous inside. Don't give it when you have varicose veins or venous ulcers. Especially it's helpful in inflammatory conditions with lots of swelling. We can also apply as oil, or you can also apply as a paste of the powder, and this is found to be effective. So it acts on specifically on muscles and joints. It's used in skin diseases, disorders of blood and joint diseases especially, and it has been found that the plant has anti-inflammatory action, also analgesic action. So it's also a painkiller. So with that, we have completed today's webinar. There are some more plans to be discussed, which we will continue in the next webinar. And I have a few announcements to make. Our webinar on Friday will be only for 2 hours. So because I have some university assignments and I won't be free until 6 p.m. So we start at 6 p.m. India time, which I think is 1300 hours UTC. And we on until 15:00 hours UTC on Friday. And then I'm going on a tour to Europe. Okay, so after Friday, I'm not available as I'm on a tour for nearly uh, 16, 17 days. I'm traveling to Germany and Italy, and then I'm able to come back again for a webinar only on 28th September. This is something beyond my control because of the European trip. So Friday, we will continue